How they gonna give you Juneteenth as a holiday and then ban critical race theory?
Yeah, that's the wildness that I had around it in terms of everything just being super wacky and super not even making sense, very Twilight eerie zoning.
So we gonna give you niggas a holiday that we can't teach anyone else about.
Yeah, it's crazy like that. But hey, welcome back to another episode of Eavesdrop. We are going to be here with you all today. We appreciate everybody for coming out. Thank you as we celebrate Juneteenth. Everybody enjoy yourself. Everybody be safe. Everybody have a good time. And let's, just give a quick applause. I want to thank you to all of the, organizers, all of the people who have done great work in and around this holiday to push it to the forefront. But as I mentioned in my last video, we have to continue to push forward. This is a perfect opportunity to weaponize the admission of slavery to America. This is the perfect time to get what it is we need, which is actual reparations. So definitely celebrate the holiday and continue to fight, continue to push, which I know many of us will do. But those of us who are not with us in the fight, please join us in the fight. Also, for everybody who is watching, can you please hit the like button? Thank you. Can you please hit the share button? And also help us get to 1,000 subscribers. So please hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate it over here at Gilded Sages. We just try to have conversations and bring everybody in. This time we will not have the opportunity to bring people in, but just know for all of our Eavesdrop episodes and when we do go live, we do provide everybody with the link to be able to come on. So without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and get started. And today's episode is about the go along, get along game. I wanted to have this conversation because in watching Kwame Brown sprinkle all of that mama's cooking on top of everybody in terms of, whether it relates to the sports industry, whether it relates to, right now he flaming up Boyce Watkins and Tommy Sotomayor. I wanted to take the time out to have a discussion about, a phenomenon that also goes on in politics because, a lot of the industries or a lot of the people that he's talking about is also influenced by politics. And so I think in a lot of different cases, when we look at people and when we look at people take certain positions, I'm a firm believer that a lot of these people don't necessarily have opinions, but they do what they think people want them to do. And so their opinions are varied based on not what they believe, but based on what position they think can propel their careers or get them access to the room. And a lot of people don't necessarily think that happens and goes on when it comes down to political figures. But I think what we have to understand is that these people's jobs are built around appeasing people. So I wanted to just touch on it because I think the go along, get along game, I think it goes over a lot of people's heads. Because even down here at the bottom level, a lot of people, even with this whole Juneteenth situation, a lot of people move with like, oh, I'm gonna just move with my head down, or I'm gonna stay silent, or I'm gonna remain, what is the word I'm looking for? I'm gonna remain anonymous, or my position will remain anonymous so that I can continue to move in a way. But I just wanna ask you to start off the discussion. Do you think that, remaining anonymous in a time where people are being treated the way that they're being treated and the issues that we're facing is part of being a passive member of the go along, get along game.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, I've been doing a lot of my research lately as well. And one of the things, especially our Black community, I'm always going to speak on community because I don't think people realize how important the base of having a community is. And when you look at our community, I'm going to bring something up real quick. Let me bring something up just real quick.
Well, why he bringing that up, man? Oh, there you go. You got it.
So I was looking over the internet and I have a list of the policies. These are not directly specific to Black people, but they're literally holding our communities together. You have at the very top, SNAP. You have Social Security, aid to families with dependent children, TANF, WIC, and Section 8 of the Housing Act of 1937. That's 6 policies that are laws that are holding a whole Black community together.
Mm-hmm.
If those 6 laws were to be repealed in any kind of way, we're done. We're done.
Can you tell us how we done?
We're done, bro.
Connect the dots, though. Connect the dots. Because we just can't connect the dots.
Every day, think about the everyday life of people.
Mm-hmm.
SNAP and TANF, temporary assistance for needy families. That's our food. WIC, that's our food. Section 8, that's our housing. Social Security, that's the elderly. This is everyday transactions that a lot of us move upon. Mm-hmm. And in a stroke of a pen, by any politician, this shit can all go away. And then what are Black folk gonna do? You can't be silent once these 6 policies is gone.
Do you think, though, if we remain silent up until that point, would it even matter if we did start to speak at that point?
I think if we do remain silent, well, I don't think it's never too late to act upon certain things. Yeah. I think that because one of the things about politics, the people, if we organize enough and there's enough voices, the people the politicians have to react to that, even if they hold all the power. That's why I always say there's power on both sides. If poor people were to come together and make enough noise because of the sheer numbers of the poor, as opposed to the people who have the political power, you have to appease that.
But do you not think that they have enough buffers, enough go along, get along gangs, your Jim Clyburns, your Kamala Harrises, your Barack Obamas, your Stacey Abrams, your whoever might be in a position where they could be an ally, instead they quell or court that uproar that we see in Black people. So with that being said, my question is more so, you always have the opportunity, but as we often discuss here as well, you need capital, you need money to fund a lot of these movements. You need money and resources to get people to certain spaces to apply pressure. So without those, again, those underlying things that are built in and around the survival mechanisms. When you're talking about TANF, SNAP, WIC, Social Security, Section 8, you're talking about bare minimum, very survival-based needs. With that gone,
there's tyranny.
You, or at least from my perspective, you do not have enough leverage to be able to, I would say, yes, you still have an opportunity, but the way that people are trying to fight, it would have to completely shift with that as well, because no longer could it be a thing of, oh, let's have, it's already not, oh, let's have a conversation. It's no longer that, because you don't even have housing.
Yeah.
You don't even have food to eat.
Yeah, it'll be Hunger Games at that point. Like, I think if these 6 policies go, you might have another insurrection of just the poor.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I think that people are overly civilized to their own detriment.
You really think if these policies go, that people will just willingly die on not having?
Because a lot of people already have, and this is the problem with the go along, get along game, that are politicos, because a lot of them are weaponized through their own ambition. So you get a lot of people who we're going to get into later, like your Candace Owens, that's on the other side of that spectrum, and a lot of people who say, well, I did it, so why can't you do it? Because again, the whole group isn't dependent on those. So you're going to have a class divide, the same class divide that we already have within this ward. Ward 8, Washington, D.C. The same class divide that we have throughout the city amongst just Black people. We're not even talking about white people right now. So that class divide in itself is going to cause a huge, huge issue, because again, that go along, get along game is going to be a buffer before you can even access and challenge the true power, because they have a buffer in between that. And so when you talk about opposing something, there's also a time frame on it. So with the time frame attached to it, because again, people love to say, oh, it's chess, not checkers, right? But what a lot of people think and don't put into context is that I like to play chess with a timer. Why? Because when you don't do it, it don't simulate it in the proper way. Because you don't always have 20 minutes to think. You don't always have 4 hours to think. You don't always have 2 years to plan out. Because why? If you're starving, you would die off by that point in time. So once that comes to place, it's a whole different ball game. And I don't think that people understand nature. I don't think that people understand society. I don't think that people understand the raw level of politics enough to be able to address it in a way that it has to be addressed, not how they wish to address it. Because politics is a very violent industry.
It is.
And the problem is, though, people only perceive violence through physical action. So you have a lot of people who talk about integrity and all of these different things. It's like, you're going to constantly lose.
Yeah.
That's why the GOP always wins. But to move into that point, though, because you got a lot of people, to keep it on Juneteenth, you got a lot of people talking crazy right now, saying wildness. So this is Candace Owens, if y'all can see. To politicians all across the world, Black Americans are considered the dumbest ethnic group with the lowest emotional IQ. In other words, the easiest political pawns to destabilize America from the inside out. Now, matter of fact, I'm gonna just go ahead and hit her second one after this, because I want to have a very fair conversation about her comments that she just made. So remember, we the dumbest group with the lowest emotional IQ first, right? Then she also goes on to say, every single race has been enslaved at some point in human history. Africans are still enslaved today. This is not a holiday. This is more emotional training from Democrats to see ourselves as somehow separate from America. Independence Day is July 4th. The end. So I'm going to start off by saying it's pure ignorance, right? One, because I need there to be context put in around we as Black Americans are not separate from America. When you're talking about Africans that are still enslaved today, my condolences go out to them.
Mm-hmm.
But understand that that is a completely different issue in a completely different jurisdiction of a completely different group of people. When we are also talking about nations on the continent of Africa, let's also understand that most of those nations are majority Black, which is completely different from being in a majority white nation and having to fight through that.
To this day.
To this day. She also goes on to say that we are the dumbest group emotionally, which has some truth to it, unfortunately, because what she said was the quiet part out loud, and how a lot of politicos and how a lot of people on both sides, whether it be Democrats or Republicans, feel about African Americans, and that we are easily manipulated and that we are dumb. And this is why you will hear me say that we have to stop believing and having hope in people who continue to show us that they do not care. Why? Because what she's saying, on one hand, is ignorance because we aren't the dumbest group. People would not be over here. Those Caribbeans and people who she wants to continue to talk up would not be over here if not for the innovations of African Americans. Also, in regards to some comments that Judge Joe Brown, I believe, made, he's also ignorant because he said that we're ignorant in terms of not knowing that we were free. But again, a lot of these people get on here, talk without context. The people didn't know they were free because for 400 years, it was said that if you read a book, you were to be killed for it. So, no, you would not know how to actually process that you're free. And let's have a conversation that people were enslaved all the way up into the 1940s. Because why? If you don't have access to media, if you don't have access to power, there's a blurred line. So I want everybody to take Candace Owens' comments and reflect on them as not just straight disrespect, because it is, but this is how people view us. If people are viewing us like this as African Americans, we have a decision to make. We can no longer participate under the guise of coalition anything. If you all aren't reciprocating to us at this point, it's done and it's over. It's dead in the water. Because I know most people feel that way. And that's why I said to think about the go along, get along game. The politicos, the people who do have the access, the people who are the buffer class, they also feel very similar, even though they are African Americans, to that of Candace Owens, which is why they capitulate to whiteness, to their own detriment and their community's detriment. But what's your thoughts on Candace Owens, what she had to say, how that ties into this whole go along, get along conversation that we're now having? Shout out to Kwame Brown. Thanks to him. Mm-hmm. But what is to be said to that observation?
when it comes to just people in general, like people like Candace Owens and the people that she follows and looks up to, it's the amount of self-hate is just, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And it's like one of the biggest things that keeps us from ever attaining anything, I'm gonna keep saying it, is the fact that we don't love our own people. We don't love our own people enough. Because if we did, we wouldn't say half of the things that we do on live television or even behind closed doors. We wouldn't say what we say. And it's like, what people don't understand is that nobody respects you when you disrespect your own. Mm-hmm. You don't get any respect. They'll look at you in your face and they'll give you the good reaction. They'll give you the reaction you want to see. But behind closed doors, they don't respect you because you don't respect your own people. You're willing to do this to the people who look like you instead of someone like Candace Owens uplifting other Black women. You'll use your platform to destroy your own people.
Well, technically not her own people because she's not African American, and I think that's why she has the positions that she has in regards to us. So she's of Caribbean descent. So I think that's why it's okay for her. I think you're different in the way that you would be what people would want from Pan-Africanism. In that solidarity that you see no difference between me and you sitting at this table. Yeah. But the truth is, there is a difference. Your people come from a place that isn't rooted in America. Mm-hmm. And most of the people who do not have roots in America feel the way that Candace Owens feels. So when we talk about even Pan-Africanism, as I had a spat earlier, that's an ideal that we can push toward, but that is not what happens.
Yeah, when applied, it doesn't, because at the end of the day, like a lot of people, unfortunately, the ones that come from, they view everything as, oh, if you're not working, you're just the laziest and it's all your fault. And it's like, no, there's constructs within this country that destroyed a lot of what people can do because everything's been tried. Mm-hmm. Like, I hate when Caribbean people come and they come with that mindset that you just do. And it's like, no, everything that you're telling people to do has been done already. Everything that Candace Owens says out of her mouth that is a suggestion to Black folk has already been done before. It's been done. Everything that people come out, all these big grandiose ideas and these concepts and these things, it already been done. Mm-hmm. There's people before us that's been doing this for years. It's been done before. So what makes you think that you and your little ideals of what should be done in this country is that much better than the people who's been doing it for hundreds of years? You got Black folk telling other Black folk, oh, we should just all run for senator. No, there's a good book out there about the first Black senators. That shit was in 1920 something. It's been done before. So I'm tired of people gaslighting Black people to attempt to do things that historically have already been done. Black folk have been doing the work for 400 plus years. If you have a suggestion, Black folk probably already fucking did it. They've already done it.
But then nobody want to hear that because, again, we the dumbest. Everybody think that we the laziest, but they don't understand how that feeds into, they'll talk about all of these white norms because, again, she wasn't against it when Donald Trump had it in his Black American plan. And that's really my problem. And that's really the discussion that, I like to have, is that the duplicitousness in all of this, because even Kamala Harris got up on TV to speak, and she's the same person who said, I'm not going to do nothing specifically for Black people. But here we have a holiday being presented, which again, I'm not against, but it begs me to question, is there any real significance in it? Because everybody who has spoken speak against us. And I want us to ask ourselves the question as Black Americans, ADOS, shout out to ADOS, shout out to, again, check them out at 7 p.m. We have to ask ourselves the question, we have a decision to make. People telling us straight to our face, F you. I appreciate the little few allies that we do have, but collectively, it's not there. It's more go along, get along people, because honestly, like I said in previous episodes, I don't even think you have people who really believe in what they say. Because when it comes down to the Simone Sanders, the Kamala Harris's, I don't think you even believe what you're saying. You're just saying it because you know that you're in a space that is what is required to say. And that's toxic. That's dangerous.
That's sad.
Because that influences, again, even when we talk about how Twitter, because those are tweets, right? How Twitter and all of these different things move, you can easily get in Twitter jail or Facebook jail by posting something truthful about a Black American event or history, right? Or you see how, because Silicon Valley is super liberal, they were able to box out all quote unquote right-wing populism. When in politics, the whole industry is built around arguing ideas. So if you infringe on that, we no longer have a free discourse of ideas because one group is offended. And in some cases, too easily offended. Because there are some things that the left do that I find egregious when it comes to Black Americans. Because again, go along, get along game, when you can have an AOC who's upset at Kamala Harris about the border, but she came out when it was time to critique Joe Biden, said there was detention centers, just like they were saying under Trump. But under Trump, she was going ham all day. So which one is it? Can people say what they mean and mean what they say? Because right now, you pick and you choose based on who and what you have to lose. Because all I see is people saying, you know what? This was required for me to say in this room. That's what was required for me to say in this room. And because everybody is fake offended, when they don't care about offending us, though, I got told earlier, Juneteenth is a token holiday. But if I were to say something about the LGBT community or her womanhood or anything it relates to that, I'm a misogynist. When I just ask that, look, my grandmother, my grandfather are one generation removed from slavery, right? The reason that I have the last name that I have, Lassine, which is French, is because my grandfather fled the South. Why? Because people were still being enslaved, held captive against their own will. When you have sharecropping, when you have convict leasing, when you have all of these measures put in place so that when, even if you flee to the North, because everybody has this whole thing about the North being a safe space, no, it was never that. Because my grandmother, who was already in the North, being a passer, was also abused by whiteness. So now there's so much trauma in the family that she passed down, colorism that we don't talk about, just because of how she had to live and experience. And so simple question. And you can't even ask people to respect the cultural heritage. But I would be in trouble. I would be all kinds of devils. If I were to say, you know what? I think it's disrespectful that to say, oh, because you transitioned into a woman that you are a woman. I think that trans woman should be trans woman, and not when you transition, you drop the trans off the woman, because the trans is a designation, an identifier that you have transitioned into your womanhood. And that's not to say I have anything against trans anything. That's just to say, you know what? I just don't think that that classification works. But I would be the devil if I say that. But guess what? White liberals, white LGBT people, black LGBT people, whoever can say whatever they want to about Black Americans, though. And that's where I have an issue. Because AOC can say whatever she wants to about Black Americans not getting reparations, but we're supposed to stand in line with her when it comes to Latinos getting reparations, when Latinos can get reparations, but not the reparations that are attached to Jim Crow and slavery, because you were not targeted, because there is data, information, statistics, history that says that Hispanics, Latinos, Asians, Indians were all classified and seen as whites under the eye of the law. But I'm a bad guy if I say that to the go along, get along crew who don't allow you to have any type of conversation. And it's so bad that even our Black American ADOS leaders don't say anything because they're also cowards. They go alone. They are passive members of the game. Because you have your active ones, and that's why I wanted to have this discussion, because you do have your active ones that Kwame Brown talks about. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of passive. Barack Obama being another one. Every time there's some type of movement, when the NBA, when the Players Association was trying to get their just due, Barack Obama, you shouldn't go about doing it that way. Defund the police, Barack Obama, you shouldn't be saying that. Edward Snowden comes out and tells the people, again, on one hand, Donald Trump and the GOP are such these bad people for, quote unquote, being on the fringe, but nobody wants to talk about how many people were ousted under Democratic leadership. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to talk about how Julian Assange is still under fire.
Oh, but he's institutionally unable to really come out and speak due to
the constraints, institutional constraints. You want to know what those institutional constraints is? That's AKA whiteness, AKA go along, get along gang, AKA gatekeepers, AKA guns, tyranny, imperialism, AKA all of those things. But we can't have a conversation about that because guess what? You will get shot. Because guess what? Everybody knows in America that the main reason that people don't speak out is because America is a violent nation. So when people ask me, oh, Devon, why are you toxic, and say you're going to die at 45? Because I know if I try to fight for my son's freedom and my family's freedom and my community's freedom, that America has a track record of killing people. Because last time I checked, J. Edgar Hoover was part of the LGBT community. Mm. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And that's why I hate the conflation. But again, if I bring that up, I'm a bad guy. If I bring up the fact that when you talk about buck breaking, when you talk about the mutilation of Black males during slavery, the actual sexual violation from both white women and white men, they don't want to have that gender discourse. They don't want to have the gender discourse that you, as a white woman, are 10 times more powerful than me as a Black man will ever be, because you are second in rank to the patriarchy. You are the patriarchy's tool to renew it. But we can't have that conversation because guess what? Black women are part of the go along, get along gang too, because they want to be attached to feminism, not understanding that, look, while you're out here battling alongside this group of people, they have increased their wealth. They are attached to a family. They are attached to a community that continues to increase and maximize their wealth.
And they will never let go of it. I don't care what they tell
Hold
you.
on. What was the percentages of when people came out, voted for Donald Trump?
It was like in the high 70s.
No, it was 60. It was 60. But you know, some of those people didn't vote for Trump just because they had to save face. Because they are also part of the go along, get along game. You get people who think that they can somehow play whiteness when whiteness understands that when it's being played, these people are not dumb. These people don't get it twisted. Everybody who think they're like, oh, I'm going to go in and no, you're not. They know. Because guess what? What Black Americans have been trying to tell y'all is we tried that. We tried that. How do you think you get the MLKs? How do you think you get the Jim Clyburns? How do you think you get the John Lewises? How do you think you get the AOCs? How do you think you get all of these people? And the only reason I say the AOCs is because she's now trying to do the same thing. Again, not understanding that when people say, oh, well, all of these Black people, how can America be racist if you have representation? Because guess what? That's part of it. That's part of it. Did you have anything else to say on that, man? Because I just found it so wild and so crazy that these people can say anything. And you don't hear nobody coming out standing up for us. We got to fight all our own fights.
Yeah. And for me, it's my focus and my fight with the go along, get along game is the older generation for the most part. That's who I really have to smoke for. Because at the end of the day, when you start talking about a lot of the issues that we deal with currently, it's because older generations of Black folk in our community specifically dropped the ball.
Bunch of them.
They dropped the ball. Case in point, when you look at Joe Biden signing this bill, the way these mofos are celebrating this bill, if you put a backdrop, like one of them little go-go backdrops, it'll look like a go-go pose. Like, why are y'all so amped up? And it's no disrespect to Juneteenth. It's no disrespect to Juneteenth. But why are y'all so amped up about this bill being signed and y'all celebrating this as if this was a reparations bill? Why? Why are y'all twisting around, dancing, doing all of this for a photo op?
And you're talking about to be clear, you're talking about the elders that are in the chambers of Congress.
Exactly. What? To me, the photo op is the worst aspect of politics throughout my lifetime. It's the worst aspect of politics. Because the way photo ops have been throughout my life have been weaponized against our community, it's the worst aspect of of politics. Because all throughout life, what you see is people come to communities, they do the bare minimum, and you get a bunch of people to take a photo, and boom, it looks great. We can put that up. That's progress. And it's like, young, that has destroyed our community silently more than anything else, because you got these people that are whores for a photo op. They are whores for it. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? You will pose for this photo. You will do more to get into this photo than you would inside of an actual room where bills are being discussed. And you got politicians who will work their ass off to get into a photo more than they would actually trying to really do the work of getting actual bills signed for their own people. That's why I said it's the worst aspect of politics, in my opinion, when you talk locally, because that's all you really see when you really look at the political landscape. It's a bunch of people that's positioning themselves for a photo op.
Yeah.
That's all I see. It looks nice.
Serious problem.
It looks nice, but it's like, young, this is what y'all mofos really call progress?
Yeah. She held up the pen talking about such an honor.
Really?
Oh my God.
Really? And you got people that died for so much more, but that's what you honored by?
Yeah. And the thing is, though, I don't believe that it's symbolism. I only believe that it's symbolism because people aren't willing to push. Because the sad part is that we have too many Black Americans who ignorantly still speak out against the need for reparations when, again, reparations is not just about cutting a check. As I've said here many times on the show, when you talk about reparations, what people have to understand about it is reparations is the allowance of regulations to also be put in place and policies to be put in place to undergird the actual checks that are given so that Black people can maintain, hold, and compound on the wealth that is being or that has been stripped from them. So it's not just about checks. And so, again, with that being said, that's a perfect segue into the next conversation. Go ahead.
Before you go, and I'll do you one better. Reparations will also set a standard to this is what happens when you decide to exploit a people. We need that. Because if you don't have a reparations bill on the books that says to companies, hey, if you decide to exploit people in this way or similar to this, you have a repercussion. You must pay people back for extorting them. Because that's what that is. It's extortion. You have to pay people back. If you don't set this precedent now, you're setting up generations after you to pretty much become slaves.
Yeah, because people don't understand how it's attached to labor. And I'm gonna get into that because the next one is going to be more so solution based. Again, thank everybody who is watching the video. We appreciate y'all. Please share the video. Check us out. Check out the rest of our content. We've done a lot of videos around a lot of similar discussions as it pertains to go along, get along, gang reparations, people being corrupted. And so the next discussion is going to be pretty much in line with this in terms of, people just trying to signal, virtual signal, because virtual signaling is a huge issue right now. And again, subscribe, please. Help us get to 1K so that we can be of, better access, be able to build so that I can do this, so that I can also, bring other people in. But what I wanted to bring up next was a local thing here in DC that I saw. And so as we talk about reparations, as we talk about statehood, as we talk about, student loan debt, as we talk about all of these different issues that people like to conflate, because I see a lot of people get online and say, oh, statehood is a race issue. No, it's not. Student loan debt is a race issue. No, it's not. Healthcare is a race issue. No, it's not. None of these issues are race in itself. When you are talking about trying to address race, what I need people to understand is that you have to do it in a equitable way. And I'm not talking about equality, because what happens in those discussions is that people like to say, well, if this group gets, then everybody gets. But what people don't understand is when you do it that way, it nullifies and neutralizes what would essentially be giving someone equity. Because the honest discussion is that no other group has been here as long as Black Americans, nor have they endured what we had to, not to negate the fact that other people have endured. Your plight is just different, and your time here being is different. As I've said in past videos, yes, Latinos share a similar position with us in terms of poverty rates, right? But understand that they are a newer group, and their poverty stems from different reasons than the poverty of Black Americans or ADOS, because Why? You have one group that was directly plundered. And as I always also say, POCs are collateral damage to the war that exists between whiteness and blackness, because whiteness and blackness was established as a business, which is why you have two Americas, because it was built that way. And what happens is when you're a POC, you get to choose which side you're on, whether you're on the white side or whether you're on the black side. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring up this article because I saw this from our DC Council. They unanimously passed a resolution calling on Biden to cancel student debt. The resolution said canceling debt would close the racial wealth gap in the country. Civil rights leaders have recently criticized Biden for excluding debt cancellation in his budget. As Democrats in Congress continue to pressure President Joe Biden to cancel $50K in student debt per borrower, cities are also joining to fight to relieve 43 million borrowers of a $1.7 trillion debt burden. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and stop there because what I wanted to say to that was also recently, I'm not sure if you caught it, the city council, and they've gotten pushback on it, also was seeking to ban flavored tobacco, right? And so we have this issue with our council who does what they think is culturally going to get them cool points, right? And so what I would say, what I need to see is if everybody is so gung-ho about Juneteenth and all of this Black power and Black pride, I'm asking you all to add to McDuffie's racial equity bill that we begin to disaggregate the Black community when it comes to data sets so that we can get a truer number in terms of the issues and where each community is positioned. Because the same way you all understand that the El Salvadorian and the Latino or the Mexican are different people, can we begin to have the conversation around the fact that we as Black Americans are different from our Caribbean counterparts, from our Haitian counterparts, from all of those different other groups that may identify as Black? Can we also get you all to unanimously write a bill that requests Joe Biden to do reparations, not study reparations, because we have the COVID data. We have him being the administrator of war on drugs. We have him being the administrator of actually writing the tax codes that not the tax codes, but the policies that doesn't allow you to actually absolve your student loan debt. We have him responsible. So can we get a unanimous letter to request that he do reparations? Because the civil rights leaders, they want to talk about student loan debt. Student loan debt will not close the racial wealth gap. We've discussed here that as well. We did a whole video on it. Because again, if you absolve student loan debt for everybody, one, you're not addressing the fact that only about 20% of Black Americans actually go to college. And then on top of that, when you're talking about the rate and why in which people are in debt, it's completely different. So Black people still hold the most student loan debt while we go to college at lower rates than our white counterparts, and Black women are at 20% over their female counterparts. So with that being said, let's ask the question. So if you absolve student loan debt for everybody, when we talk about generational wealth, we aren't having a conversation about trust funds like we brought up last time. And you can go check out that video because we went into it more in depth. But you're not talking about the transfers. You're not talking about the fact that income is not wealth, that high incomes are not associated with wealth. But again, because the conversations are, oh, well, if you do it for Black people or Black Americans, ADOS, African Americans, the American Negro, however you want to identify, you have to do something for everybody. No. How about, like I suggested, how about we take the Green New Deal? How about we take the student loan debt? How about we take housing? How about we take all of those bills and couple them into a reparations package so that, one, everybody can be helped. And I'm not saying, I'll go as far as to say, I'll give a concession that no white person should get their student loan debt absolved. None. I can go with the Black diaspora. I can go with that. No white person should get their student loan debts absolved. Because your poverty, and like we went in the last book, when affirmative action was white, and we talked about white legacy, white poverty exists for different reasons than Black poverty. And nor are you attached to it in the same way. So, no, you should not get it. Anybody who wants to bring smoke, leave it in the comments. I'll come back next week or tomorrow. Let me know. If you want, I can hop on IG if you want smoke that bad, because I want y'all to understand it only furthers the racial wealth gap. Because now the money that is being absolved can be used to invest, because we're not having a conversation, again, about the plunder of generations. Because most Black Americans, those people who have went to college, who've gotten out, are taking care of families. It's not the same dynamic. But DC Council likes to virtue signal. DC Council, because they're white in most part, and the people who aren't white feel like they have to capitulate to it to get deals done, because that's how politics works, will allow it. But guess what? They aren't going to do it anyway, because why? It would shift how labor works in America in the generation of millennials. The reason that we can't get a $15 minimum wage is because it would change the labor dynamics. And guess what? The reason that I said you bundle all of those into a reparations package, because the reparations is what guts the power from the core. Because again, not only do you cut checks, you pull money from corporations that participated. You pull money from American government, because American government is an organization. So to all of the people who are anti-Black American, I need you to understand that when you came to a country, when you migrated here, you signed on to the country's mission and the country's debt and the country's imperialism and the country's everything that it has done. The same way that when you sign up to go onto a business, I signed up to stand on their mission. I signed up to stand and take part of everything that they have done and will do in the future. So yes, you pay into it too. Nobody asked you to migrate here. Yes, I've done videos about imperialism and America's imperialism, but you all are so gung-ho that you're not understanding that American imperialism is fueled by slavery, because America would not exist. It would still probably be a third world country in its infancy if it were not for slavery. Because without the advancements, it doesn't catapult into a world power. It don't. But you all are so ignorant in your own hubris, in your own disrespect to us. Mm-hmm. All because who are these Negroes to say whatever? Who are you? Why should John just get it? Why should John just get it? We should just get it because it's a legal parameter attached to it. Because if you take it to the courts and you say that it's just on this universal Blackness, the courts are going to throw it out because universal Blackness doesn't exist. Mm-mm. And they understand that. When they created race, that's how they locked it in, because they understood that there is no universal Black race. But you buy into it. But again, I'm the bad guy if I say all of this because I'm not going alone to get along. And then when it comes to people in DC, everybody's a fake warrior until it's time to get up and say something. And then everybody want to smile, and whether it be the mayor's face or, like you said, get in the photo op, because that's all they care about. That's all they care about. When it's time to speak, or not even speak, but just stand beside the person who's speaking, they cowards. Nobody's around because everybody's trying to get a deal. When guess what? That deal is going to kill your fucking kids. Because when its time is up, you're going to get starved out. Because the same people who you cry about, oh, they're oppressing us, they're oppressing us, they're oppressing us. But then, oh yeah, I'm going to go get my deal though. Guess what? When your deal run out and you lose the leverage of having the people behind you, because that's the only reason any politician matters. Any. Nothing. You're nothing without your base. You're nothing without your people. But y'all think that y'all gonna have the same leverage. It's funny. It's just so funny, bro. And it's so crazy that we gotta have these conversations, because I also am doing this in a way that I don't want to be doing it my whole life, because it's not all of me. And this is what people don't understand. It's not all of me, but at the same time, it is necessary, because, like you said, if we don't address the labor issue, while corporations are just getting richer and richer, it does not leave us a foot to stand on.
Exactly. And I'll do you one better. One of the biggest reasons I believe we have to disaggregate, especially in DC as it stands, is when you start to look at what's going on, especially when you talk about things like gentrification, those things happen because you have a lot of people who migrate to DC that fall under that Black category. But what happens when we talk gentrification and they're looking at just raw numbers is that Black pulls on all Black people incomes. And what happens in our city is that, like every other major city, the income levels of certain people that reach a certain standard are naturally higher. But they might not be African American, but they fit under Black. So what developers do is they use this whole little, what's that term? Affordable housing. They use affordable housing. And this is affordable because the median income of Black people in DC
is attached to the feds. That's attached to a federal, just so you know, that's attached to a federal number. So part of the argument that statehood being good for us is that we will be able to have autonomy over that. I agree to some extent, but I just don't think that statehood is a racial issue.
I mean, yeah, but one of my major points is that you have developers who take that type of data, and you have the poor people who won't be able to qualify for affordable housing, or that affordable housing isn't even sufficient because what developers create as affordable houses might be a 1-bedroom. You got families that are poor that have 4 or 5 children. They're not creating the type of housing that the true people that need affordable housing actually need. They're creating condos and calling them affordable housing. Affordable for who? You know how our people live. But because they take a raw number of Blackness instead of disaggregating Blackness and really being able to see that, hey, the bottom African American ADOS people are less than what? In DC, maybe what? Worth $10, maybe $12?
Yeah. Again,
affordable.
Our wealth before COVID was scheduled to hit zero by 2050. That's probably going to be way sooner.
Affordable housing needs to look like this. But instead, we use affordable housing as, okay, let's just build a couple of condos that might be $400 less it'll still be $1,600, $1,400 or whatever the case. But that's not serving the people that it's supposed to serve. And this is all across America, where people are just throwing out terms that only fit a certain type of person, but it doesn't do anything for us as a people. But they call it affordable, or they use some other term as if it's really doing something to help uplift people, when in reality, you're just making it comfortable for other individuals who would fit into the upper class anyway, because we have this cover-all term Black. So it's just a cover-up to me. And that's why we need to really disaggregate, because you would really get to see the wealth disparities in this country. And you would get to really get policies that address the wealth disparities.
Yeah. And so I'm going to just end by saying I need DC Council to unanimously petition Joe Biden to get on board with reparations.
Mm-hmm.
I need you all to support McDuffie and add in that we need to disaggregate data as part of racial equity, because we need to understand how each group specifically under that designation is being addressed. We need different historical touch points, because everybody is around here crying about the GOP and them being against CRT. Let's see you all try to recorrect the narrative. Let's see you all help scholars, individuals, correct a narrative by disaggregation. So I appreciate y'all for coming out. Please like the video. If you liked it, if you disliked it, dislike it as well. That's fair. Subscribe, leave a comment, tell us what you think. And if you want us to go, or I can't speak for him, if you want me to go live for any of the things that I just said, we can work on Sunday.
I mean, I'm with it too.
I was about to say it's Father's Day, but if that's what y'all want,
I'm with it too.
It is what it is. So thank you. Y'all be safe, and we're going to catch y'all another time. Thank you.